3, 4. Okay, Coles.
Yeah, I'm excited today.
Full-blown pucker since about last Thursday. Thought about you and what a bastard you are all weekend for doing this to me.
Most people think that about me anyhow, even when I don't do anything to them. So get in line, Kenny.
The nature of this show traditionally has been, let's goof around and have fun and not get beat up in the dark of night over what we have to say. But you you're delivering the goods, my friend.
Oh, yeah, well, Ken's delivering the goods.
You have a wonderful guest lined up.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. Yeah,
Go ahead.
Let me tell you about this, Kenny. So, gosh, joining us, let me introduce him first, right? Okay, we'll start with the introduction, Ken.
Yeah.
Retired Minneapolis Police Sergeant Ken Tidgwell has been nice enough to drive all the way down here and join us to talk about something I've been fascinated with ever since I first met you.
Right.
I think we met at a what was it? A coffee shop? No, it was like a McDonald's or something. Yeah. And Ken and I got to be, I can say it now that you're retired, right? We talked a little bit off camera about stories. So you became a good contact of mine with Minneapolis Police out of the 4th Precinct.
Right.
And we were chatting about, you started dishing and giving me information on motorcycle gangs in the Twin Cities and all of Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know not even a quarter of what you were talking about.
Right.
And I was always so fascinated with it that I thought, man, I got to do a story with that. But I could never figure out, how do I do a 2-minute story on motorcycle gangs in Minneapolis and Minnesota just out of the blue? So I said to Kenny, Kenny, the story I've always wanted to do is sit down with Sergeant Tidgwell, who at the time, or at one time, was the head of investigations into motorcycle gangs. And your knowledge was so fascinating to me that one of the things that hooked me in was when you told me, oh, sure, the head of the Hells Angels. Well, he's got a jewelry store in Stillwater. You know, he runs
Pat Matter.
No, not Pat.
No, I can't remember who what even the name was at the time. But it was, and then you started telling me about a weekend that I was living in Stillwater at the time. I think you might have even said to me, "Hey, be careful over down at PD Pappy's and in that area, the bar down there.
Right.
We're hearing some chatter." I think it was the Outlaws and the Angels were going to go at it.
Correct.
And they were actually in Stillwater that week. And I would have been the clown. Kenny, I would have been the bozo walking around in that bar, not understanding
right in the middle
what could have maybe unfolded. And so anywho, that brings us to today, where I said, let's get Sergeant Tidgwell in to talk about motorcycle gangs, and not just the Twin Cities, but all of Minnesota. And I don't even know where to begin.
Oh, I do.
Okay, where do you begin?
How many are there?
Yeah, there you go.
In the state, or are we talking?
Yeah, in the state.
Let's go statewide.
State of Minnesota.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I know they call themselves clubs.
Right.
Yeah.
Hundreds. There's hundreds and hundreds of members between all of the big clubs that are prevalent in Minnesota and all of the smaller motorcycle, we call them motorcycle clubs. MCs, right?
MCs, yeah.
But there's hundreds. Nationally, there's thousands. Internationally, globally, the Hells Angels, for instance, have probably in the ballpark of 6,000 members. So
see,
that gives you some perspective.
I didn't know they were global. Did you know that, Kenny?
No, I did know that. I've watched every single documentary on TV about motorcycle gangs, so it's all TV knowledge that I have here, Jay.
Sure.
And I have a question right off the bat. Are we talking in the state, all of these motorcycle gangs with criminal backgrounds? Or are we talking the guys I know, lawyers who put on a costume on Friday night and then take it off on Sunday evening? What kind of gangs are we talking about here? I mean, clubs are we talking about here?
Right. Well, there's a lot of questions within that question, right? First,
yes.
And I got to clarify, I was not the head of the investigative unit for the bikers in Minneapolis. I did it informally as part of patrol duties.
Right. Well, that's because there were circumstances that led up to that. And really,
Correct.
You were the head of it by yourself on your own.
Yeah.
You took the initiative.
Myself and other
You didn't have
cops,
the exact title.
No.
But
not at all.
In effect, you were...
I was a contact.
Yeah.
I was a contact that had an interest in it and had worked in gang work for years and years prior to that. So it was just kind of a natural fit for me there. Nobody in Minneapolis was doing biker gangs at the time, so I kind of picked up the baton and ran with it.
And to answer his question, they are what? These guys that are lawyers by night on Friday and by day on Monday morning, over the weekend they were...
You talk about the lawyers and the judges and the people that comprise the membership of these clubs. And there are clubs. There are MCs all over the state that are essentially that, a group of guys and people that get together to ride, and they enjoy Harleys, and that's what they like. There's another element out there, I think, that we're talking about today, and that is the people that are more criminally minded. And it doesn't matter the background. We've documented people from the military, airline pilots. Literally every facet of life is represented in these clubs at different levels. And I'll say off the bat that not everybody that's part of these clubs, these gangs, are criminals.
Sure.
Many are. Many have long criminal histories, but they're not your FBI most wanted guys.
Right.
But they literally comprise every aspect of life, every profession: doctors, surgeons, pilots, politicians, judges, lawyers.
But those guys would be the ones that they wouldn't necessarily be part of Hell's Angels, would they? And if they were, how could they do that and be a lawyer or a judge? How does that work?
Well, there's documentation of people nationally that are in some of these professions that are, like I said, from the military to lawyers that are members of these clubs. And it adds quite a contrast to what you do from 9 to 5 versus what you're doing in your off time and weekends and the people that you're associating with, right? So those that you hang around and you're a part of in a group by association, sometimes, you're deemed as a bad guy.
As a bad guy.
Yeah.
Which ones are the top 3, 4 in Minnesota? We know Hell's Angels. We got Outlaws, right?
We don't. So
Is
Wisconsin.
that Wisconsin? It's strictly Wisconsin?
Yep.
Okay.
So in Minnesota, we go back to the 50s. So kind of post-World War II time, we had a club here called the Grim Reapers. The Grim Reapers were kind of the offshoot. They're the members from that ended up becoming Hell's Angels. And that was, again, back in the early 50s, sometime in that, and they were based out of Minneapolis. So they derived into what is today's Hell's Angels in Minnesota.
Okay, so it started in the 50s, slides into the Hell's Angels in the 60s and 70s?
Yeah, probably more like the 80s, early 80s. And somebody brought up Pat Matter earlier. He was one of the, was the first Hell's Angel Minnesota-Minneapolis charter president for Minnesota. So, yeah.
It's an interesting thing he told me, too, about the gangs in general, that they are probably, my understanding is Minnesota, for example, the Minneapolis chapter, it could be one of the more violent ones in the country. At one time, it had a reputation for being one of the more violent Hell's Angels chapters. Correct. So if that's the case, who were they feuding with in Minnesota? Who were they fighting for territory? And what kind of territory are we talking about? Strictly drugs, weapons, prostitution, all of the above? I see you smiling.
All of the above.
I hit the...
all of the above. And so within the biker world, there's rivals within the groups. Hell's Angels have kind of been standalone, and it's regarded in my profession of law enforcement that it's the Hell's Angels against the world, essentially. So when you talk about rivalries, in Minnesota, the big name clubs of this state are going to be the Sons of Silence, which have kind of always comprised of the outstate part of Minnesota.
Okay.
Rochester all over the rest of the state.
So Kenny's Up and Alex, those are his boys.
Some, yes, but in recent years, say the last decade, less than a decade, 7 years or so, the Hells Angels have expanded their charters to outstate Minnesota, which created an internal state rivalry, again, between the Hells Angels and the Sons of Silence. So on a bigger scale, we regard Minnesota as a red state. So when you're looking at states, it's the prominent club of that state that kind of is in control and dictates what all the other clubs do.
So they got their own little political designation. We're a red state for a different reason.
Right.
And that being,
unfortunately,
we're a red state because of Hell's Angels.
Correct.
Jay, you got it wrong. I live in Madison, Wisconsin.
I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to mention where you live. I say.
Well, you got the right colors
I'll get
on,
this
Kenny.
right one day, Kenny. Sorry about that.
Wait a minute. I'm not wearing colors. I'm wearing a T-shirt I bought at Fleet Farm.
I'm not supposed to divulge his location. I just violated one rule of the show already. Yeah. But okay, so wherever Kenny is, if he's in outstate Minnesota,
Right.
that's no longer Sons of Silence. That's more Hell's Angels. How
both.
come we
It's
don't
both.
hear about, when gangs feud on the north side of Minneapolis or the south side of Minneapolis, east side of St. Paul, there are news conferences. The U.S. attorney has prosecuted a bunch of them. Why don't we hear, because I hear from law enforcement guys that these motorcycle gangs are still active, still very violent, still involved in murder and drug running and weapon, and we don't hear a thing about them. Why is that, Ken?
Well, and you could allude to the conversation earlier about connections and people involved, and for whatever reason in Minnesota, there's never been a massive focus on outlaw motorcycles gangs, and I part of what compelled me to start doing these guys is because nobody was doing them at the time. Gang strike force had disbanded under a shroud of
not only suspicion
issues.
but wrongdoing.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that vacuum, that void created the vacuum of these guys essentially doing exactly what they wanted to do when they wanted to do it, and people just don't cover it.
So this is an uncomfortable question, but it's come to my
For you
mind
or me?
for both of us.
Okay.
For both of us. But you know me, I'm going to ask it.
But not me. I'm turning my mic off. Okay. Go ahead, Jay.
When there's this vacuum and there's this vacuum all of a sudden that's created.
Sure.
Gang strike force is disbanded. Any sophisticated organized crime unit like the Hells Angels,
right?
They're gonna move, right? They're gonna see the vacuum. They're not stupid. Is part of it, Ken, as uncomfortable as this is part of it that some in law enforcement had connections to Hells Angels and some of these organizations. Yep. And if there was a law enforcement connection, that means what? Look the other way?
Right.
Is that fair to ask?
Yeah, a very fair question. And it has been an issue that has staggered law enforcement for decades of having to investigate and criminally go after these folks, both in terms of prosecution as well as doing surveillance and active investigative stuff. You have to really protect that investigation. You really have to, not let the cat out of the bag and let too many people know because of compromises within, say, the department or politically or whatever. Or it doesn't matter. They have their fingers literally in everything. And, one organization that is part of a bigger organization in Minnesota, the Coalition of Clubs, which the Hells Angels are kind of the umbrella entity of that. They are in control. Again, it's a red state. Hells Angels are the dominant club. There's sub-clubs that are under them. Some of the other MCs that we'll talk about are under them. There's one called Street Legal. Street Legal is comprised of judges and attorneys from around the state of Minnesota. So these are exactly who you're talking about that are going out, Monday through Friday, sitting in a courtroom, defending people, doing whatever they're doing in their 9-to-5 job. And then weekends and off hours, they're putting on a vest and emulating this biker world persona and going out and riding with these guys, attending their meetings, showing up at the bar, PD Pappies or whatever, and having beers with them and hanging out and emulating that lifestyle. The street legal guys, right, judges and attorneys, they wrote the bylaws and essentially the rules for this coalition of clubs.
So they stay within the lines of the law.
No, so
on paperwork. On paperwork, am I right?
Well, it's a different kind of rules.
Okay.
So these
but I would think the lawyers and judges would know how to write this so that they could have this coalition.
Well, and this coalition is essentially set up for to organize the clubs that are within the coalition of clubs.
This is astounding, by the way.
Thank you.
Astounding to me.
Yeah.
Astounding to me.
When I made that reference, I was referring to posers, not real criminals. I mean, guys that go to ice cream shops and
You got a little
baby showers.
You got a little more breaking news here today than that. It sounds like to me.
I was not ready for this.
I wasn't either. That's why I said to Ken, I've known him a long time, and he trusts me that it's a fair question, even if it's uncomfortable. It's fair. And the reason I say that is we're both retired now.
Right.
And I'd heard for many years, and I even know some names of law enforcement involved in these gangs.
Right.
And that was a big reason why. And that's why I wanted to ask you that question. Why don't we hear about it?
Well,
and it's because there are, now the lawyers and the judges surprised me a little bit.
Right.
But there is law enforcement. And now, as Ken's telling us, there's some apparently lawyers and judges who are connected, which then makes sense as to why you don't hear much about prosecution of motorcycle gangs. Because Ken has told me in the past, and I'll let you say it yourself, it's as prolific as the highs and lows over on the north side, right? Maybe even more prolific than some of the gangs we're familiar with that have been prosecuted recently, but you don't hear about it.
They're smart enough to keep a low profile.
They do. That's Ken has told me part of it. They don't want any media attention. They don't. They want to fly below the radar. I mean, they have, you know where the clubhouse is, right over there in Northeast.
Okay,
North,
so I want to tell you
more north. Yes, you're right. It's out
tell you
near
a
West
story.
Broadway.
You guys know this story, and I'm apprehensive about saying this, but during the riots, Ken, I'm a traffic reporter, so I have all the access to all the cameras and everything, and during the riots, I'm working really hard, following all the news, and the news people were amazed that the joint and the junction and the caboose were not being targeted, but right next door a pawn shop was. And I found out through friends that there was a possibility that angels were protecting those buildings.
Sure.
And I was smart enough with my history of drinking at the joint to know I'm not going public with that. I will not, under any circumstances, out the angels for even doing good work, because I know they don't want any kind of publicity at all.
He'd be right about that, right? They don't like the publicity. You're right.
They try to fly under the radar. You know, they do things like Toys for Tots. It's one of their big, civic ventures that they go out and try to, convince the public that they're
photo
just
op,
good old boys, and look at what we're doing. We're delivering bikes to kids and toys to underprivileged people, these kids, and all this stuff. In regard to the, sitting guard at the joint or any of these places during the riots, the public has seen also through a lot of the same Hollywood, romanticism that they've created. Sons of Anarchy, all these, these shows that depict this lifestyle as this glamorous, brotherhood of good old boys that are just out, trying to survive and do their thing, is really a bunch of BS. And currently, these guys are more active than they've ever been. Again, part of the reason is because we don't have the law enforcement resources in this state. Minneapolis is down 500 cops. St. Paul's down. They don't have the resources to pump into it. And so these guys are literally getting away with whatever they want right now. So drug trade, weapons, prostitution,
gambling,
extortion, all of these things are their bread and butter. This is how they, as the club or members, make their money, is through the trade of, the illegal trade of drugs, narcotics, weapons. Just about any of the gals that are working in strip clubs or anything else are going to have some sort of connection with these guys, and they're going to get their piece. BJ's, right up on the north side of Minneapolis, was traditionally a Hell's Angel hangout, and every Thursday or Friday, whenever they held their church meetings or their club meetings at the clubhouse, 2 or 3 of those guys would be down there drinking and hanging out with the girls, and then they would go up and take part in their little meetings. So these guys you said they protect them. They took part in this protection of the community, right? And the public didn't mess with them. You didn't hear of any encounters. People weren't reporting it.
Right.
Again, you don't see PETA or any animal rights people out going after them for wearing, all the leather goods that they have. I would love to see that. I'd love to see the PETA guys out front of the Hells Angel Clubhouse on Washington.
They're dumb enough to do that.
Yeah, they're not going to do that because there's consequences to those actions. So.
Yeah. Well, you even told me an interesting story. They're sophisticated enough as an organized crime unit to have businesses that are simply fronts.
Right.
And you mentioned a business owner in Stillwater where I was living at the time. You told me, you go, Jay, right where you're living is the guy who runs Hells Angels. He runs a business in downtown Stillwater.
Right.
It's a business, but it ain't his business. I mean, it's his business, but his real business, you told me, was running the Hells Angels.
Well, he wasn't.
And I was like, wait a minute, right in downtown, the head of the Hells Angels.
Yeah, he wasn't the president. He was.
I thought he was president.
No, not a president. He held some other officer positions.
Okay, so he was high up.
He was high up in the club and very charismatic guy. If he's
running a business in Stillwater.
Running a business.
I could have easily gone in there and done business with him.
You could have.
But his real business, this was a front for to launder money.
Well, whether or not he's laundering money, he's doing, I guess is we won't know at this time. But,
but you could surmise.
Yeah. But you can, because there was an investigation years back. Somebody brought up Pat Matter. Pat Matter owned a motorcycle shop up on the north side of Minneapolis, and that's exactly what it was. It was a place to cut up bikes and sell illegal parts and launder money through it and everything else.
He was also a racer, a pretty good drag racer on motorcycles.
Right. Yeah. Kind of what he did.
What was when you investigated these guys, give the audience an idea of how bad and nasty they could be if they had to be. Murder?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's well-documented cases both in Minnesota and nationally of murder for hire, murder of opposition, rival club members in other organizations. The running of drugs and illegal firearms, again, is a huge market for these guys. But yeah, you can't be enamored by the glamorous Hollywood version of what these guys are and what they're about. The truth is that they're very violent. Their world is very violent. And the top echelon of these clubs are some of the most violent within the club. So, and those guys usually rise to positions of officer positions, president, vice president, sergeant of arms. In fact, one of the positions held by some of these members is exactly that, the enforcer or sergeant of arms. And your duty as that person is to keep other members in line, to enforce club rules and to defend the club. If they're out at a bar, that's the person that is going to head up that confrontation typically. So
I guess I'm not surprised by the organized crime part of it and all that, right, Ken?
Right.
I was surprised at the proliferation of it, how widespread it is here, because you never hear anything about it.
Right.
I think I was a little more surprised by what you and I have talked about in the past and what you've said on the air today, that the reason we don't have press conferences in here so much is because they've got
the
connections in law enforcement, the legal system,
right?
And it's different than when they bust the highs and the lows.
Right.
They'll call a news conference. Right. I can't even remember the last time a Hells Angels member was indicted on anything.
Well,
was there one recently that I've missed?
There's a really interesting case that played out in the last 2 years up in the Duluth area.
Oh, there you go. See,
where 4 angels were being prosecuted for a number of crimes, and all the charges were dropped. And because they couldn't find, if I remember right, the witnesses decided that they couldn't testify. And then after this, a gal, and we don't know her association with the club or if she was one of the alleged victims, but she did a drive-by on the Angels clubhouse in Evelyn. And if I remember right, she unloaded a 9mm and missed every time.
Yes,
so she was just spraying, praying, and spraying. And then she ended up getting arrested. So my question for Sergeant is, Is she going to face retaliation, or is the fact that she had to go to jail and probably see a shrink retaliation enough? Should she be afraid for her life if she's ever out in public again?
The truth and the reality of the matter is absolutely. If you go essentially to war with one of these clubs or members, there's going to be retaliation. And whether or not it's now or it's in a year or 5 years from now, we'll wait and see. But there's been well documented again cases both in Minnesota with a history of violence with OMG members, outlaw motorcycle gangs, and nationally with these guys doing. Pat Matter, for instance, was back in the day. He had a car bomb attached to his vehicle, which exploded and nearly killed him as part of a retaliation by other rival club members. And so anybody that speaks out, testifies, intimidation, witness intimidation is another huge aspect of what the club, what they do. And when you go paper to pen on these guys and you make a statement or you take action like this gal did, and I believe she was a member, one of the victims from that incident up there.
That's what I've assumed. I don't know for sure, but yeah.
You can expect something at some point.
So I'm guessing you know quite a bit about Pat Matter.
Quite a bit over the years, yeah.
Jay, can we take a quick break and come back?
What you know are two different things.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Yep.
Chris, are you ready? Can we come back?
Rolling.
Okay, so Pat Matter was the subject of, like a 9-part documentary that I watched recently within the last year. And then I know that after he left the club, tell us what happened with him, with his leaving the club, because I'm sketchy on my memory. I'm old.
Yeah, well, he didn't exactly leave.
Okay.
You don't retire typically, or you don't just leave. But, he ended up getting involved criminally in some retaliation and violence back toward the members of the club that had tried to come at him and the Hells Angels here, and was essentially indicted and arrested for some of those crimes. So that's how he left the club. And he left in bad standing, which is a term they use because he ended up essentially talking to law enforcement and testifying in other trials against other Hells Angels.
Why isn't he dead?
Yeah,
We've
he
asked
wrote a
that
book
question.
too, Jay.
Yeah. I know the documentary you're talking about is on Netflix.
Right.
Yeah.
I saw the same thing, and now that you bring up his name, I only know it from that documentary.
Right.
And so my question is, how is it that he can?
Yeah, why is he walking around?
Why is he still able to walk? Yeah.
Yeah, that we've asked that question at one point in time. I know that the members up here were, actively monitoring, surveilling, watching him, and why they didn't pull the trigger essentially is I guess, again, we won't know that. I don't know.
I have a theory. Too high profile.
Right, but when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of things, these guys, there's 100 ways to
die in the West.
To die in the West. So just because he's walking around, somewhat healthy and safe today doesn't mean that tomorrow he will be. And unfortunately, that's a byproduct of living that lifestyle. You know what you're getting into. He knew what he was getting into when he got involved with the Hells Angels, 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Is this something? Go ahead, Kenny.
Well, we have this image that every single angel is the world's worst human being, but I found out last night that I knew an angel pretty well, that I had no idea he was an angel. And in my mind, he was a real sad sack, to be honest.
Right.
He didn't fit the stereotype.
Not at all. He frequented a place my roommate worked during the day. I'm not going to say where, but she hired him to do some work at our house. And I got along with him great. And I kind of felt kind of sorry for him because he was always, oh, woe is me.
Yeah.
And then I'm telling her last night about the show today,
Yeah.
and she said, oh, well, that guy was an angel. And I never would have guessed.
Right.
This is the part of this that I don't understand because I've seen them out and about. I've seen the Hells Angels before, and they didn't seem menacing. I mean, they had a look to them, but
I drank with them
Yeah.
in my 20s.
yeah. So
And they were innocuous.
I hear you, brother. Ken, can you explain? I suppose there are some in it that aren't maybe higher up, that aren't as violent and aren't calling the shots for the criminal activity. Is that part of it?
Yeah, it's part of it. It's, these guys, they are everyday Joes just like everybody else, right? These guys hold any number of positions, within our communities, from, fix-it guys to concrete guys, jewelry shop owners, lawyers. They are the community,
Why would that guy that he's describing be in Hells Angels, though? What was his? Would he have a role at all, or he's just a dues-paying member?
That's part of the irony and part of the makeup of the club. It's very expensive to be a
You gotta
club
pay.
member.
You
got to pay your dues, physically and financially, just to be a member. It's a very expensive venture for these guys, from the point of, friend of the club, hang around, prospect, up to and attaining a full patch in one of these clubs.
So a guy like he's describing, they might use him just to get his money
100%.
to help run the operation, but he ain't part of the operation, if you know what I mean.
Right.
He ain't running anything
He's
criminal.
not running anything.
Yeah.
And that's
okay.
your ham and egg guy.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the average guy that's going to be a member of one of these clubs.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. You need the foot soldiers.
He's
You
a
need
revenue source for
He's
them.
a revenue source.
And then he can be cool
Right.
and tell his friends.
Yep.
Okay. So if I'm living on the same block as an angel in South Minneapolis, by the way, I lived on 38th and 20th Avenue South. Nice little neighborhood in the south side, just south of 38th Street.
Sure.
I'm thinking if an angel lives on my block, I'm living on the most secure block in the city.
Well, again, Kenny, that's another misconception, right? Like Jay said, you go and have a beer at PD Pappy's in Stillwater with your wife, and you see a couple of these guys hanging around.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, and that was one of the things we talked about years ago, was these feuds that take place, these violent encounters between these clubs. And you're sitting in there, and the next thing you know, there's a brawl, and people are getting bottles smashed over their heads, knives, and they'll use any tool, especially the ones that don't, red flag law enforcement right away, wrenches, flashlights, screwdrivers, that's just to fix my bike. Well, no, it's a weapon that you'll use to defend yourself.
Well, I also, on that same street, we had a drive. It was kind of a drive-by, and it involved Somalis, where they got out of a car and just started shooting wildly at a bunch of kids on a basketball court. And I felt more nervousness, shall I say, about that than I think I would with an angel or any motorcycle club member.
Well, again,
because the bullets were going everywhere.
Right. But again,
they aren't aiming; they're just waving it around.
Again, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. Those guys are usually not so much. They're in a gang, if you will, but kind of by name only, right? It's kind of a cool thing in the school. They call themselves whatever the gang is. But there's no hierarchy. There's no organization.
Jay, uneducated idiots,
right?
Yeah,
well, that too. That too.
I'll agree with you.
But they wouldn't be. So the reason you wouldn't know about the Hells Angels guys is because, again, to your point earlier, lower profile. They're not going to be stupid like that.
Right.
And that also tells you those gangbangers, if you want to even call them that were doing your drive-bys, weren't part of the more sophisticated, if you want to call them sophisticated, organized, structured, hierarchical gangs.
Correct.
There's only a handful of those really in town in St. Paul and Minneapolis.
Yep.
The rest are all wannabes, if you will.
Yeah.
And the wannabes are more dangerous to the average Joe on the street than they are because they're more interested in taking out their rival gangs for the money. Right. They're not interested in harming the general public.
They don't do crimes against civilians.
Nope, generally speaking not. So when you see that, are they gangs, Ken? Technically, you could call them a gang.
Right.
They're just not an organized gang with a hierarchy of power and structure.
Right. And the similarities between the street gangs and the motorcycle gangs is for any entity, law enforcement entity that's going to, term or regard these guys as a criminal entity, you have to fit certain criminal or, group type. You got to,
You got to have your specific expertise.
Right.
He's known as our drug guy.
Right.
He's known as our guns guy. Right.
Yeah.
They're almost like corporate divisions of a corporation.
Yep.
That guy runs the guns. He runs the prostitution. Right.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of how it goes. They got the fingers out this way, and they're organized and they report to the guys above them.
Yep.
These other guys that are running around shooting up playgrounds generally aren't those guys. They're just a bunch of, like you said, what'd you call them, idiots? Yeah, they're idiots.
Yeah, morons.
Yeah, and we'd get back to talking about places like the bars they hang out, like PD Pappy's. I would go there because they had great music. And I'm trying not to cast any aspersions on PD Pappy's. They're not part of the organization.
Not at all.
No. It could be any bar. It just happens to be that one in Stillwater. And Ken called me and said, I know you live over there. I know you go down there. Just be aware the Outlaws and the Hells Angels are about to go at it. And they're probably going to be at that particular location.
Yeah, and there was a rift. There was a confrontation.
It turns out it happened.
Time. Stillwater, Stillwater officers responded to it.
I had a guy in the motorcycle unit, or as close as we could after it was disbanded, telling me, don't go down there this weekend, Jay. And you know what I did? I stayed away. Yeah. I didn't go down. Yeah. I didn't go down there because he told me about it. And I was shocked that, I think that's when you told me, there's a business owner in Stillwater, and you gave me the whole backdrop. I didn't realize it was that, ingrained, or not even ingrained. I didn't know it was part of places like Stillwater or pick your smaller hamlet around the Twin Cities. Yeah. I thought it was all Minneapolis and St. Paul centric, right?
Yeah.
And I learned it was, you were like, no, Jay, they're everywhere. And I'm like,
everywhere in every facet. The guy doing your concrete next week might be a Hells Angel, or the guy coming in to remodel or roof your house might be a Hells Angel or another club. So
it was fascinating to me.
Yeah,
but I'd never heard about any of this stuff, and I thought maybe it was a bygone era. Back in the Hunter Thompson days when he infiltrated. By the way, I want to ask you that.
Great book.
It was a tremendous book.
Yeah.
Was MPD ever able to successfully get somebody on the inside, or is that something you can't really talk about?
Yeah, no, MPD, the focus was never
to get in
or do that. It was more or less a maintenance of who's members, and if they're doing, if a specific crime took place, a shooting or an assault, or not many years ago even, there was a stabbing over in Northeast at one of the bars between a Hells Angel and another person, and so the focus for law enforcement here, at least in this state, has always been reactionary in that sense. There was one case back in the late 80s, that where they ended up essentially doing a warrant on the Hells Angel clubhouse there in Minneapolis, and did some things. But most police departments just don't have the resources, I guess.
Because that would take time to get somebody in. It could take years. Yeah, it could take years.
And tons of resources financially to put cops into that. And a lot of times when you see those investigations, they're going to come from a federal agency, the ATF or FBI will be involved in those.
The feds would do that before you guys would.
Right.
And how large is it, Ken, when we talk about being big and active and across the entire state of Minnesota? It's even called a red state for the Hells Angels.
Right.
What are we talking about in terms of dollar amounts for drug distribution, dollar amounts for prostitution, gambling, the whole entity itself?
Right.
What's the ballpark? What's their revenue? $500 million, billion a year?
Yeah, there's millions of dollars that are involved in these industries. Yeah, I mean, does that mean that, these guys are all millionaires running around riding bikes? No, but, like any organization, these monies then have to get filtered back to the national as well.
Oh, okay.
So, as a state.
So they're just like a franchise.
Yeah, essentially that's exactly what it is.
You got to go out and kill people.
Yeah, you have to sell
knife
drugs
people, and you got to give some of the money back to the boss.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah,
talk about being a worker bee.
Corporate's going to get some money out of these guys, and they do. And that's so. The guy in particular we were talking about, he was a national officer, so he he ended up holding that rank for a while, and I believe he was treasurer for the national level of the Hells Angels.
Of the Hells Angels?
So, yeah.
I've driven by that club so many times covering stories.
Yep.
And every time I drive by it, I take a look and I just say to myself, what's going on in there right now?
Right.
I would love to know what's happening in there.
You're too much of an investigative journalist. Because when I go by there, I don't even turn my head. That's the difference between
Come on,
you and
Kenny.
I. Eyes forward. Eyes forward.
I'm always curious because that just to me seems, like I told you, I've interviewed gang members before. So not to say that I'm not afraid of them on a Friday night in a place I'm not supposed to be. Certainly would be, right?
Right.
But again, they're not too interested in us. So as long as you're not, I
Are
bet
they
I could even go knock on their door, Kenny, and ask them for an interview, and they wouldn't do anything to me.
Don't do that. Jesus. Can you control yourself?
That was my job.
Well, they would turn me away,
yeah.
but I doubt they would do anything physically to me. If I rolled up with a camera, yes.
Yeah,
can't imagine.
you wouldn't get a warm reception.
I wouldn't do it with
Jay,
the camera.
No, not at all.
But I would
Close.
not be afraid to knock up there, walk up there, knock on the door without a camera,
Right.
introduce myself, and say, I just want to talk to you guys.
Right. You'd probably get the door slammed on you, but
Right.
you could try.
But do you think they would do harm? I don't think they would.
Most likely, no.
Not. Yeah.
They wouldn't.
No.
Initiations. The initiation rites. That's Hollywood, right? You have to smoke this bowl of meth or any of that nonsense. It seems so, I don't know, comically outrageous.
Right.
You know
Well,
what I mean?
that sounds like a frat house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is all that
hazing
stuff
phase?
true?
We didn't get into the nuts and bolts kind of membership and what is required of these guys to become a member, a full patch member. But when you are a prospect for any of these clubs, Outlaws, Hells Angels, Banditos, Pagans, it doesn't matter. You are at the whim and will of the full patch members. So if that guy says, hey, I want a Jack in the Box burger, you better find a way to find it. It'd be at 3 a.m. If you're a prospect for that club, you better go find a way to find that
Okay.
burger for that guy. So
That's a lot different, Ken, than the story Pat Matter told about. I told this to the roommate last night. I thought she was going to kick me right in the baby maker. That Pat got a call from a club member when he was trying to patch in and said, I want you to, he goes, is my wife or my girlfriend with you? You know this story?
I've heard it.
And Pat says, yeah. And the guy on the phone says, punch her in the face. So he did. And then he said, have your way with her. So he did. That stuff is real?
Is that real?
That stuff is absolutely real. These guys, again, they are at the whim and will of a full patch member. And as a prospect, your ultimate goal is to attain that patch, right? So,
Yeah.
if you've survived the background that they've done, which is very extensive usually, and especially in a club like the Hells Angels, you're going to bend over backwards to do whatever is requested of you, or it's not even a request. It's you better do it, or you're not going to be a prospect in an hour from now. So.
See, my problem is I don't even like the people I like. You know what I mean?
We might be
I have a
brothers.
hard time hanging out with people I love,
Right.
let alone try to do that.
How do you explain the psychosis of it?
I don't get it.
You can't explain it. It's a different
World.
Kenny, even you, it's a different world. And Kenny, even you who hates people,
Right.
Yeah.
you would not.
Kenny, if they asked you to punch me, you'd do it in a second.
Well, that's true, depending on who.
For free, probably.
Okay, you found my one. But I mean, look at you, Reavers. You're 7'7". You crushed me in a second.
Here's a question for you. I know they knew who you were. They always know who the coppers are.
Right.
Did they ever threaten to kill you? You ever have to go face to face? You ever had to make a hands-on arrest? What was it like for you?
Part of that whole part of my job with the enforcement aspect of my job is this was, I think, abundantly clear to them, is if you stepped out of bounds,
You were there.
I was going to be there, and I gave no quarter to them. So if I treated them respectfully because that's
Part of the code.
part of the code. The professional part of my position is, you treat everybody the same and respectfully. And I did that with those guys. But they also knew, as you said, are you known? Yeah.
Oh, they know you.
So, I pulled over a guy outside the clubhouse, a full patch guy, and as they call them, old ladies. In this case, it was his wife, but they refer to them as old ladies or property. Which is interesting, isn't it? Yeah, try that at my house, see what happens.
That's what I was going to say.
It's just another world. That is
I'm
fascinating.
I'm living with a strong woman.
Yeah,
She
no,
would
not using old lady around anybody. No.
You might catch one in the baby maker at my house if you
How
do
about the
that.
line, property?
Property.
That's my property.
Well, and to the point, they that's written right on the back of the patches that some of these gals wear is property of whatever the club member is. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So what happened with this patch guy? Did he threaten you?
No, not at all. It wasn't a threat, but it was funny because his old lady
She
at the
threatened
time. No, she said, she goes, I know you, and I said, you do. Yeah, your face is in the clubhouse. They got a picture of your face in the clubhouse.
Great.
So and it
See,
always.
I told you they knew you.
Yeah, they knew, and so
How does that make you feel?
Yeah.
I mean, Kenny and I are worried about asking you questions.
Yeah.
Right.
Kenny more than I.
Definitely.
But you worry for your life?
No, I mean, no more from them than anybody else that I dealt with over the years. As a policeman, everybody is going to be a threat.
But would they target you because you're so onto them? They have your face up in the club. They know they're trying to tell all the club members, if you see this guy, not necessarily kill him, just be aware of him.
Be aware of him. No.
Behave.
Because he's going to pull you over.
Right.
And if he catches you with drugs or guns, he's going to arrest you. And so... Yeah, that part of it. As far as the fear part, no more than anybody else. Again, these guys aren't the boogeymen. They're not big bad. That vest, that color, the colors as they refer to them are cuts. Doesn't make them Superman.
Well,
They're not
probably shooting a
bulletproof.
cop would not be probably the hierarchy wouldn't like them taking on a cop.
Yep, and most often you're right. They do not want that sort of heat brought down on them, and that's just going to disrupt all the other aspects of their business ventures, right? So if you got a bunch of cops snooping around because you were stupid and you decided to go after an officer or their family, Have I had threats? Yes. So back years ago, some specific members that I kept having interactions with, made some comments.
I like how you're trying to be guarded. We're not on regular radio. You can say you can talk freely because it's not broadcast radio. But
Jay,
the interactions,
Jay, this is a podcast that sticks around forever.
Well, that's true.
You're going to
That's
listen to
true.
this in 100 years.
So I'm glad you're being careful.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
But anyhow, you had guys with interactions, and they said to Ken what?
So there was some threats, veiled threats, in the sense that he's not untouchable. We know where his family. We know where he lives.
Yeah.
So, and it was done within earshot of some people that I had that were
Sending a message.
in very close vicinity. They didn't know who this person was at the time. So. But they made these comments, and so that information got back to me during an interview later on. But yeah, it's, and there are, again, well-documented instances over the years, a lot more back, 30, 40, 20 years ago, where these guys had these violent altercations with officers or actually targeted them.
Yeah.
In fact, specifically with some of these clubs, there's awards that you can actually get for assaulting police officers or going after. Tidgwell is one that the Hells Angels specifically have. It's a patch you wear that, more or less says that you fought or done battle with the police.
With a cop, wow.
Yeah, and not everybody is going to attain that or achieve it, and some people just don't want all the headaches that comes with because if you do that,
Heat.
Yeah, our club's a lot bigger than your club. So.
Right.
Are the pagans still around?
Not in Minnesota. No.
What about the Sons of Silence? Are they still here?
Absolutely. Still a very viable gang within the state, several chapters, again, mostly outstate Minnesota. You asked earlier about some of the bigger clubs in the state. At one time, and I've been out of this game now for going on 5 years, retired for 3, but within Minneapolis proper, there was 34 motorcycle clubs, something that we would regard as, organized, orchestrated clubs, motorcycle clubs that operated from within Minneapolis.
We're all 34 into criminal stuff?
Members were.
Members were?
Yep. And of that 34, you had 7 that were part of the big, or we call them the 1%ers. Mm-hmm. So they are the ones that you would know more so. The white clubs, you had the Sons of Silence, the Old Forsteros, the Hells Angels within the state here. We haven't even talked about the black clubs yet, and that's like another whole conversation. But the other 4 of that primary, that 1% designation as a outlaw motorcycle gang, comprised of black clubs within the
what
city.
I've heard with the black clubs and the white clubs is that there are actually times, Ken, where they get together on like Halloween or Christmas and have like a truce or something.
I've worked they call it the Halloween party at Whiskey Junction and some of the places that we've talked about, the joint.
So they're feuding outside of this one time.
Right.
And then the black clubs and the white clubs get together
by invitation.
By invitation, but they party.
They party, and there's always a
for only
reason
one night. I
behind
think it is only one night, right?
Well, the Halloween party fundraiser. You'll see some of these guys roll up.
It's the Christmas Day truce in World War I,
right?
That we've all read about.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Singing jingle bells across the lines or whatever they were doing. But,
So if Kenny and I walk into an establishment and want to throw back a cold beer, and we see 3 or 4 patched Hells Angels, should we nudge up next to him at the bar and start chatting them up, or do we just go about our business?
God,
what
no,
do we do?
mind your own business. What's wrong with you?
Because I'd be fascinated to talk to him.
Or Jay, you got to stop with that.
You know
Stop
what?
being so curious.
I'd want to sit down next to him and go, so tell me all about your club. I'm so ready.
That one, they're probably not going to buy you a beer,
No.
Jay, with that question. But, these guys, part of the misnomer, too, is that they're these evil beasts and monsters. Mm-hmm. Many of these guys are very charismatic guys. In fact, the guy that we talked about that owns a jewelry store, right?
Right.
Very charismatic guy. Very friendly. I mean, you'd swear to God he's a politician, for Christ's sake. He shakes everybody's hand, and everybody knows him and talks to him. So,
well, they're usually well plugged into the politicians,
right?
Elected officials, they want to be more a part of the fabric, if you will,
right,
on the outside,
right,
and not so much on the inside.
Yeah.
Shoot, I was just hoping I could strike up a conversation. I'd die to interview one of those guys.
I'm not going out with you anywhere. By the way, I live on a boat in the middle of Lake Superior, so it's hard for me to come ashore.
Understood.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fascinating. Thanks. Appreciate the time,
You're very
Ken.
welcome.
Is there anything you
Thanks for
missed
having
out
me.
on, Sergeant, that you wish you could have accomplished with this part of your life, or are you happy with where you are post-retirement?
That's a pretty broad question, Kenny. I mean,
just motorcycle gang.
Yeah, I was going to
related.
say.
Yeah, let's leave everything, because I've studied up on you, so I could talk to you actually for 6 hours straight.
Sure.
But
But
he's
just
got some
as
good
far,
stories too.
yeah, as far as outlaw motorcycle gangs, are you happy with where you ended it?
No, I'm not, and that reason being is that, as I mentioned a little earlier, these guys are running unchecked at this point, and they have for years. And unless you're doing active investigations and you're doing large enforcement details, which we've done some of that over the years, but you really, in order to keep them and crime in check, you need the proactive units and you need the people out there that are going to enforce the laws and hold these guys accountable. And when they can run wild like they are and have been, police chases between these guys and incidents of violence throughout the state, again, not being, televised, you're not reading about it.
Right.
And I have no idea, I have my speculations why, but yeah, these guys are running unchecked and they know it. No different than the city council, all of a sudden taking our ability to pursue people.
Took it away from you.
Took it away from us. It takes about 5 seconds on the street for these guys to acclimate to that and go, oh, look we got a free ride here. We can do whatever we want. And Hells Angels and outlaw motorcycle gangs are no different than that. They're gonna feel the tide and what's going on in law enforcement and no shit. There's no pressure out here anymore.
Well, hell, the 15 and 16-year-old kids have figured that out.
Right.
So
yeah. let alone structured, organized,
Correct.
entities like this with the contacts.
The folks listening and watching, they would have no idea you're out of the 4th precinct, obviously. I've known quite a few over 30 years now of guys out of the 4th precinct on the north side of Minneapolis, for those who don't know. It's always interesting when I talk to you guys and get to know you guys personally. Most people would say, why would you want to be a Minneapolis cop to begin with, right?
Right.
And the next question is, why the hell you want to be in the 4th precinct? Why don't you want to be in the 5th precinct?
Right.
And every 4th precinct guy I've talked to, including you, have said, wouldn't want to be anyplace else.
Yeah.
I want to be on the north side. I want to be in the 4th precinct. Explain why that is.
I absolutely love my career in law enforcement. I loved working the north side. I mean, the community up there in and of themselves are wonderful, great people. They want the exact same thing that everybody wants. It's, peace and security and good schools for their kids, and they want to live a life that they choose. And it's the, that 5%, 3%, 7% element of criminal in every facet, whether it's outlaw motorcycle gangs or traditional black street gangs, that are causing all the trouble. And they're the cancers of any society. So any time that I could go after, target an investigation or enforce the laws and go after these guys, that was very satisfying to me. So
how many times did you get shot at over there?
During the riots or in all the previous years?
Well, we could separate them out, but the riots you must have been shot at least a dozen times, huh?
There was, most often nightly, there was, in fact, at one point, we told cops, stop going up Lyndale Avenue because you couldn't drive up there without getting shot at.
Well, we were told as media, too. I mean, I was around gunfire every day of the riots. I've got some on my phone where I took video of myself and my photographer.
Right.
It was all around.
Right.
Do you remember distinctly them shooting at you? Have you ever been in those situations where you were the guy targeted, or it was just a spray of fire? Yeah.
No, yeah, of course. And
how many times do you think you were shot at in your career?
Jesus,
I mean, a couple. During the riots specifically, I was with a group of guys as part of a strike force, and we'd responded over to Lake Street over there, and we pulled in the parking lot of the Target. The old Target that used to be that sat there, and we pulled in that back parking lot, and all we heard was the gunfire and saw the muzzle flashes.
Wow.
And there was actually, they were shooting at a group of other cops that were sitting out behind us, all barricaded behind Jersey barriers.
Yeah.
And it was an ongoing thing. But yeah, during that period in time, it was insane.
Yeah. I'm having flashbacks. We were told by neighborhood groups to stay in the house.
Oh, yeah.
So we did the opposite, me and a bunch of other neighborhoods. And it was I was really surprised. It was a nonpartisan group of people that were not going to take shit from anybody. And so we were assigned to the alley. And I brought out a few shotguns because I'm not going to start throwing bullets around in the middle of the night. And I knew 8-shot in a shotgun is just going to, it's going to do damage to the bad guy. But we sat there.
That. I didn't know that about Kenny.
We sat there and in lawn chairs, listening to this mayhem all around us.
Oh,
that's when I turned to the roommate and I said, "You ready to move up north?" And she goes, "Let's go." And 2 months later, we were gone.
Right. Yeah. Well, I was right down. Now, I wasn't armed, obviously, but I was right because that was one thing. Hubbard Broadcasting wasn't.
No, we're not doing that.
Putting any guns on anybody.
Barney Fife over here.
Right.
Well, I was right down at the 3rd precinct.
Yeah.
Right there when it went up in flames.
Yeah.
And there were gunshots all over the place. And I had no idea if I was going to get struck by one or not.
That parking lot you brought up, I was down there the day after one of those nights, and they were still going in and out of all the buildings. And I have all the footage still on my phone, and I drove from the Mississippi all the way over to Nicollet filming everything. And my city burned down,
essentially, yes.
And it just killed me.
Yeah.
I loved Minneapolis. And it just turned on me that day, and we left.
It was
tough.
Something else. Nothing I'd ever experienced. And then we had the ones right after George Floyd, and if you remember, happened up again in August with the fake shooting on Nicollet Mall, where they put it out as a cop shooting, and it wasn't. Right. And we had a few more days of it. It was insanity. My son caught one of my live reports down outside the 3rd precinct.
Yep.
He did call me, and he's a former Marine. Well, I shouldn't say. He's a Marine, right? You never heard former Marine. Yeah. I've heard that a few times.
Right.
He actually called me and said, "Do you have any security with you down there?" And I said, "No, not at all." And he said, "Do you need me to come down there with my Glock?
Right.
I'll come down with my Glock and watch you and your crew."
Yeah.
I said to my son, "No." I said, "I don't think I want another weapon down here."
Right.
I thought maybe it was a dumb move, but
Right.
he was willing to even come down there,
Yeah, rightfully so.
arm himself, and do what he had to do.
And they were indiscriminate. They didn't care if
No.
it was EMS. They didn't care if it was fire. They didn't care, innocent people in their homes. And that's one of the, the tragedies with that type of violence.
Yeah.
Is just
It was
it's
indiscriminate.
Indiscriminate. They didn't care at all. Yeah.
How long did you work 4th Precinct? How many years was it?
Oh God, I started in 2008, so pretty much the entirety of my career was spent there. Some time out in 2nd Precinct and 5th Precinct, but I
4th?
always found my way back home.
Everybody wants the 4th. I think that's when I got to know you, was you toward the end of your 4th, like 2012, 2013?
Yeah.
That's when I got to know you. And I remember you, because I ask everybody that I get to know over on the 4th Precinct, I'm like, why do you want here?
Yeah.
Like the second shift, what is that called? Midwatch?
Middle watch. Yeah, middle watch.
Midwatch has the highest number of police calls in the state.
Yep.
On a daily basis.
What's the timeline? What are we talking about?
Midwatch is like midday to early evening, isn't it?
Yeah, it's essentially 3-ish to 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning, and,
Sure.
and then
Dog
watch
watches
is
after that.
overnights. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
What a
Police calls in-
fascinating discussion.
Wonderful place.
Well, it really was. Like I said, the vast majority of that community are great people.
80,
and-
90% are law abiding.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
Yeah.
you say?
Yeah, for sure.
It's 10%.
Yeah. Yeah.
They wreak all the havoc. I mean, Ramsey County Sheriff Bob Fletcher told me over in Ramsey County when they were trying to deal with the juvenile problem over the last few years, he said we've identified about 40 or 50 of them.
Right.
It's about 40 or 50 hardcore juveniles causing all of this carnage.
And it's
That's
across it's across the mark. I mean, from medical services to police services, all of it is generated by a very small percentage.
Small
Of the
percentage.
community. So,
But they're loud.
very loud.
That's and they're
I don't miss that.
You're enjoying
Okay.
your retirement, aren't you? Yeah.
You were hunting. Were you going after pheasants? What were you down in Sodak for?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh.
Jay said you were on a hunting trip.
No, it was. He asked me if I was hunting. Actually, no, I was out there because I love that area. It's very peaceful, Kenny.
Yeah. I am out in the country, and it took me a year to get used to being happy.
Right.
Yeah. It's so fun being happy.
The one downside to it is in regard to the whole conversation of motorcycle gangs is Sturgis, and during that period in time, that whole area is just infiltrated by bikers, but all of the big guys are represented out there. So, and there's always some sort of mischief or something.
There's shenanigans.
Yeah, and so yeah. Other than that, hunting and fishing and
peace and tranquility.
Peace and tranquility. I love it.
That's why I like the woods. Everybody's like,
Yeah.
"Why'd you go to the woods?" I'm like, "Oh, it's quiet.
Yep.
I don't have a lot of neighbors. I have nice neighbors, but they're way down the road,
Right.
No pants required.
and there are no pants for."
Don't invite me over for that, Jim. I don't want to see that.
Sarge, thank you so much for joining
thank
us.
you.
Yeah,
Thanks for
Ken, that
having
was
me.
that was good. That was
Appreciate
good.
it.
I've always wanted to have this conversation at length, so this has
Yeah.
been. I just always found it very interesting.
Well,
so I
thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me, yeah.
I know
I
I put you on the
appreciate it.
spot with a couple questions, but
No.
all right. Thanks,
You
Ken.
rolling?
Soul Man, I am rolling.
Well, that was
Pretty good.
wow.
Pretty
That
good,
was,
right?
Wow. Good job, Jay.
Thank you. Well, Ken was the guy, and I didn't know if he would go that far,
Yeah.
but I was hoping he would because he's retired,
Oh,
and he went pretty far.
Truth be told, we just had a long discussion off the air, and we could talk to him for hours about all sorts of different things
Yeah.
that have happened in Minneapolis in the last 20 years.
I mean, he was 20 plus years as an MPD.
We've kind of established kind of a routine where I book a guest and we put on our clown hats and we dance around and act like nincompoops. And you bring a guest in and it gets really serious and really fascinating.
Which is okay. I told you, I like the serious as long as we get interesting, and he was interesting.
Fascinating.
Yeah, and I'm anxious for what you've got next week
So
as
with
much
that
as I
in
was for
mind,
Ken.
A guy named Dan, a GLer who's been listening a long time, wrote a letter, an email to me touting the benefits of Seafoam, which I endorse, right?
Yeah.
And we use these endorsements in the live ads. And he talked about an ATV, UTV side-by-side trip from Emily, Minnesota to Copper Harbor, northern Upper Michigan, right?
Okay.
And as soon as I read this, I'm like, oh my God, I got to talk to this guy for a long time. I want to hear about this, and I need advice because I want to do from New York to San Francisco in a side by side.
Wow, he has really lost his mind.
And I want you.
This is certifiable nuts.
I want you to put on your man britches, take off the skirt, and buy a side-by-side because you live in the country. And if you live in a country, it's a requirement. You have to have one.
I've been told. I told you I want that crack sales team to get on it and get me a Polaris, and I'll give an honest opinion about whether we should do it or not. What craziness, where did it all go wrong for you that you think going from New York to San Francisco would actually be fun?
I am
Which
fascinated.
part of that is fun?
Gee, I'm fascinated by epic, dumb journeys. People that get in a canoe and canoe to Hudson Bay.
Okay.
Eric Severide, right?
Yeah.
You know about him.
Yeah.
Or down the Mississippi,
Right.
or these old codgers that will drive a John Deere tractor across the country.
I know. I still don't get it.
That
But
kind of stupidness, I love.
because I saw that video you sent me, Kenny,
Yeah.
and I don't have that much ambition.
All you
That
do
takes-
is sit there and drive.
No, they're cutting down trees that have fallen in the trail.
Well, yeah.
They're stuck in mud. They
Well,
can't
yeah.
find a place to take a crap.
Well, yeah.
I'm like, how is this fun?
So
How?
we're going to talk to them next
and
week.
if you don't have any, I've got zero ambition.
Yeah.
None.
Minimal effort.
Minimal
maximum
effort,
glory.
maximum glory. That looks like so much effing work.
How about
right?
this? We get
You
a
know,
side.
is there any
Jay,
way
but-
we could get ladies involved in bikinis on the side by sides? Then I might be interested. Is that something I
have-
can't say these days? You
Yeah,
can't
you
have
probably
bikini.
stop. Yeah, that
What?
probably. no,
What?
maybe.
It's summertime.
What
Why
if we
can't
do
they be in a
this?
bikini?
What if we do this? We're in the same unit. I drive. I do all the chainsawing. You just sit there and look pretty.
Now I'll do it.
Yeah.
Now I'll do it.
All right, Reavers. I forgot
But
to
you won't
ask
talk
you.
to me for the whole trip from New York to San Francisco.
Oh, yeah. There's no
What?
communication in the car.
What?
No.
What?
Actually, what Kenny likes on a road trip is you have to make sure you read every road sign going down the highway.
This guy is a load of fun, man. Party written all over him.
We could have a lot of fun. Reavers, did you happen to find that music? I forgot to tell you about it.
I forgot. I'm so sorry. Can you want me to use your normal outro?
No.
Oh, are we
We'll
done
just-
now?
Yeah. You know
Okay.
what? In keeping with minimal effort, maximum glory, let's just say goodbye.
All right, see you, Ken.
Bye-bye.
That was great.